The ground shook every time Princess Zavara walked. She was not like other aliens. She was tall, almost 9 feet, with burning red skin, glowing eyes, and fire in her hair that never stopped moving. Her body gave off heat like a furnace. If she got angry, metal melted. If she cried, the palace caught fire. No male ever got close to her. Not even the bravest Paraxi warriors. Many had tried. Hundreds of suitors from across the galaxy came with gifts, songs, and promises. But the moment they stood before her, they turned pale. One fainted. One tried to run but slipped on his own sweat. One even peed himself before her glowing throne. The people of Paraxis called her the untouchable flame. Even her guards stood far from her. Her servants used long tools to pass her food. Her own father, the High Emperor, spoke to her through a glass wall, and she hated it. Princess Zavara stood alone in her black marble chamber, watching fireflies trapped in lava glass. She whispered, "Will anyone ever touch me and not burn?" Outside the palace, a new ship landed. It was small, old, human-made. The guards raised their blasters, ready to fire. But the man who stepped out didn't look dangerous. He wore dusty clothes, simple boots, and had dark brown hair falling over his eyes. He didn't carry any weapons, just a metal box and a calm face. He looked around at the lava rivers flowing beside the landing pads and said, "Nice weather." The guards blinked. "What?" "I'm here to fix something," the human said, holding up his toolbox. "Name's Jacob," they laughed. "A human mechanic? On Pyraxis, you'll melt before you reach the gate." But Jacob smiled. "I'll take that chance." They let him in, more curious than kind. No human had ever asked to come this deep, especially not near the palace. Inside the main hall, heat shimmered in the air. The walls glowed like fire. Even the stone floor was warm enough to cook meat. Jacob wiped sweat from his forehead but didn't stop. Then he saw her. Princess Zavara was seated high on her burning throne. Her legs crossed, her glowing eyes watching him like a hawk. Jacob bowed slightly. "Heard your energy panels were short-circuiting." Zavara said nothing. She was waiting for him to scream, to run, to tremble like all the others. But he didn't. He just placed his toolbox on the ground and looked up at her with a quiet smile. "It's hotter than a desert oven in here," he said, "but you're still the coolest thing I've seen today." Silence. The guards gripped their weapons, waiting for Zavara to explode, but she didn't. Her eyes blinked, her fingers twitched, and something strange happened. She laughed, just once, a soft breath, but enough for everyone in the room to freeze. Jacob scratched his head. Was that a laugh? Or did I just imagine it? Zavara stood slowly. The flames around her throne danced higher. The heat pushed forward like a wave. Jacob's clothes started to smoke, but he still didn't move. "You're either brave," she said in a deep voice, "or stupid." He shrugged. "Maybe both." The princess stepped down from her throne. With each step, the floor steamed. She came closer and closer, until only a few feet stood between them. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. Jacob nodded. "The one no man dares to touch." "And you still came?" "I came to fix a machine," he said, "but now I want to fix something else." "What?" "Your smile," Jacob replied. She stared at him, fire flickering in her eyes. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like burning someone. The next morning, the royal halls buzzed with whispers. "Did you see it?" She laughed. "He didn't melt?" A human made her smile. Servants peeked around corners. Guards stood closer than usual, curious and alert. Even the royal cook stopped using long sticks and began walking slightly nearer to the flame princess. But none dared to speak to her, except one, Jacob. He returned to the palace with his toolbox, just like nothing happened the night before. He whistled a tune as he walked through halls made of heat and flame, nodding at every Paraxi guard like they were old friends. No one whistled on Paraxis. It was a war world, a world of ash and fire, but Jacob made it look like he was walking into a small-town workshop. Princess Zavara waited for him inside the core room, where molten rivers powered the palace generators. She was dressed in dark armor today, smoke drifting from her shoulders. The air shimmered from her heat. "Why are you back?" she asked, her voice sharp but curious. "Didn't finish yesterday," Jacob replied, placing his toolbox on the edge of a glowing panel. "One of your converters is cracked." "Dangerous stuff," Zavara crossed her arms. "Most creatures can't even enter this room." "I'm not most creatures," Jacob said without looking up. She stepped closer. Aren't you afraid of me? He finally looked at her. His face was calm, but his voice was serious. I've seen real fear before. It doesn't come with fire. It comes when your sister's screaming in the dark and you don't know if help is coming. Her glowing eyes softened. You had a sister? Still do, he said. She's on Earth and she's hotter than you. Zavara blinked. Then she laughed again, louder this time. The pipes shook. The lava bubbled. But it wasn't because of anger. Jacob smiled. Now that's the laugh I was fixing. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the core room. An alarm blared. The wall above them flashed red. Zavara's face turned serious. Molten leak in Sector 7. Jacob grabbed his toolbox. Let's go. You'll die in there, she warned. He didn't answer. He ran. Zavara followed him. Sector 7 was chaos. Molten rock had burst from underground pipes spilling across the black floor. The guards were backing away, their boots melting. The engineers were panicking. Robots shut down from the heat. And in the center of the disaster stood Jacob, calm, focused, unarmed. He climbed a support beam, balancing himself while holding a wrench in his teeth. The lava roared beneath him, steam rising around his legs. Zavara shouted, "Get out of there!" Jacob yelled back, "If I move, this whole place blows." She clenched her fists. Her fire rose. But for once, she didn't burn anything. She didn't scream. She watched. Jacob worked fast. Sweat poured from his face. His gloves were already black with soot. But after 10 long seconds, click! The valve sealed. The lava stopped. The alarms went silent. The room was still. Everyone stared. Jacob climbed down slowly, limping a little. The moment he stepped onto safe ground, the guards cheered. Zavara didn't cheer. She walked up to him and looked at his hands, burnt, red, shaking. "You could have died," she whispered. He grinned. "But then I wouldn't get to see your smile again." She looked at him for a long time, then carefully, slowly. She raised one hand. Her fingers moved toward his face, close, just a breath away. The air between them shimmered, but she stopped. "I'm not ready," she said softly. Jacob nodded. "Then I'll wait." That night, the stars above Paraxis seemed cooler, and the Fire Princess stood on her balcony, thinking about a strange human who didn't fear her flames, and for the first time in her life, she hoped he'd return tomorrow. The next day, Jacob didn't show up. Zavara noticed. She sat high on her throne, pretending to read reports, but her eyes kept flicking to the doors. The guards noticed her tapping fingers. Fire sparked at her feet, rising and dying like small angry waves. "Has the human mechanic returned?" she finally asked. "No, Your Highness," said the lead guard. She said nothing, but her throne grew hotter. The truth was, Jacob hadn't been banned. He just hadn't come. No message, no excuse. She felt something strange. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was disappointment, and that made her angry. "Prepare the arena of fire," she growled, "and summon the human." The guards bowed quickly and left. 2 hours later, the alarm drums boomed across the palace. Jacob stood at the center of the arena of fire. He didn't look scared. He was dressed the same as always, scuffed boots, old jacket, toolbox in hand. He looked around at the massive stadium walls. Heat poured from the steel like waves from the sun. Thousands of Paraxi nobles had come to watch. No one had seen the fire arena used in decades. "What's going on?" Jacob asked, wiping sweat from his face. A voice echoed from above. "You fixed a valve. You made the princess smile. But can you survive her rage?" Jacob looked up. Princess Zavara stood at the top of the arena, her armor glowing. Flames rose behind her like wings. Her hair blazed, her eyes golden. "I don't want to fight you," Jacob said, raising a hand. "You don't have to fight," she replied, stepping forward. "You just have to survive." The ground beneath him shook. The floor split open. From the depths, a beast crawled out, a creature made of molten rock and ash. It had 6 legs, 2 burning jaws, and eyes like lava bombs. The crowd roared. Jacob's heart pounded. "I see," he whispered. This is a test. He had no weapons, no armor. Just his wits, the lava beast roared and charged. Jacob jumped aside. The claws slammed into the ground where he stood just seconds before. He rolled, picked up a piece of broken metal, and used it like a shield. Zavara watched closely. She expected him to run, to cry, to beg. But Jacob didn't run. He didn't cry. He didn't even look at her. He studied the arena. He noticed vents on the floor. Heat release valves used to keep the lava beast from overheating. A plan formed. He ran toward one of the vents, dodging the monster's claws. The crowd gasped. The beast lunged, but Jacob dropped to the floor and kicked open the vent control panel. Sparks flew. He pulled 2 wires, tied them fast, and redirected the steam burst. Just as the beast leaped again, psht! A jet of scalding steam shot upward. The lava beast screeched in pain and slipped. The crowd rose. Zavara's eyes narrowed. "He thinks like fire," she whispered. Jacob grabbed a loose pipe, stabbed it into the ground, and triggered another steam blast. He herded the beast toward the center of the arena using pressure and heat, not strength. Finally, the beast stumbled and collapsed into the pit it had come from. Silence. Then cheers. But Zavara didn't cheer. She leapt from the high balcony, landing hard in front of Jacob. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Fire rippled around her. He looked up at her, sweating, bleeding, smiling. "Passed your test." She stepped closer. "You think this was about passing?" she asked. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Wasn't it?" Her voice dropped low. "This was about seeing if I could let you die." His smile faded. "And?" Zavara looked at his burned arm. "I couldn't," she said softly. Then she did something that made the entire stadium gasp. She held out her hand. Jacob stared at it. Fire still danced along her fingers. Heat rolled off her skin slowly, carefully. He reached out, their hands touched, and for the first time in her life, her flames didn't burn, they glowed, warm, gentle, alive. That night, the legend of the human who walked through fire spread like a storm across Paraxis, but the real story was only just beginning. That night, the palace was quiet. Too quiet. The air still smelled of smoke from the battle, and the crowd's cheers had faded into whispers. But Zavara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying one moment again and again, the moment when Jacob's hand touched hers and he didn't burn. No one had ever survived her touch. No one. She stood on her balcony looking down at the molten rivers flowing through Paraxis. Her heart, once cold behind all that fire, now beat faster every time she thought of the human. What was he? Why didn't her flames harm him, and
why did she want to see him again?
Behind her, the doors creaked open. Jacob stepped in, his boots dusty, his shirt half burned, carrying the same old toolbox. "You shouldn't sneak into a princess's room," Zavara said softly without turning. He smiled. "I didn't sneak. Your guards let me in. I think they're starting to like me." She turned to face him. "They like watching humans burn." "Then I'll disappoint them again," Jacob said. Zavara almost smiled, but her eyes went to his hands, still bandaged. "You're hurt. Nothing serious," he said. "I've seen worse fixing old reactors on Mars." He paused. "You okay?" She hesitated. "No one ever asks me that," he shrugged. "Then maybe that's the real thing you need fixed." For a moment there was silence. The only sound was the slow bubbling of the lava below. Then Zavara said quietly, "Come with me." She led him down a hidden passage behind her throne, dark, narrow, carved from obsidian. The deeper they went, the cooler it became. Finally, they reached a door sealed with molten sigils. Zavara pressed her hand against it. The door hissed open, and behind it lay a secret garden. Ash trees glowing faintly, pools of liquid light, and thousands of flowers made of crystal fire. Jacob froze. "This place, it's beautiful. It's my curse," she said softly. "This garden lives on my flame. The moment I die, it dies too." He looked at her. "You said it like you're planning to." She walked slowly toward the center where a stone statue stood, a woman holding a burning child. Her expression was peaceful but sad. "My mother," Zavara whispered. "She was the first fire queen. She carried this curse and passed it to me." Jacob studied the statue. "What kind of curse?" Zavara's voice trembled. "Our flames are not gifts. They feed on love. The more we care, the hotter we burn, and anyone we touch in love dies." Jacob's eyes softened. "That's why no one comes near you." "Yes," she said, "because I could kill them by feeling too much." She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. "That's why I should hate you. You touched me and you lived." Jacob took a slow step closer. "Maybe it's not hate. Maybe it's hope." "Hope," she said bitterly. "I burned my own guards once just for helping me. I destroyed my sister's pet by hugging her. My people see me as power, not as a person. He reached out, stopping just before touching her again, then stop being fire that kills. Be fire that warms, her lips parted. You don't understand. Then help me understand, Jacob said. Zivara looked down at her glowing hands. You shouldn't have survived. But your skin, it's strange. The heat doesn't sink in. It's as if, she stopped suddenly. Her eyes widened. Wait. She hurried to a table at the far end of the chamber and picked up a scanner, a Paraxi energy detector. She waved it around Jacob's arm. The screen blinked red. Jacob frowned. Is that bad? Zivara whispered. You carry dormant energy. A shield frequency that resists Paraxi flame. Maybe your body, your planet's atmosphere, made you different. So basically, Jacob said with a grin, I'm built fireproof? Zivara looked at him, her anger melting into something else, something warmer. Maybe you're the key. The key to what? She turned toward her mother's statue, eyes shining. To ending my curse. As they stood there, the garden's flames flickered softly. The air grew lighter, almost calm. For the first time in years, Zivara didn't feel like a weapon. She felt human. But outside, shadows were moving. In the palace corridors, the royal council had seen the heat signatures. They saw two figures together in the forbidden garden, the princess and the human, and they were not pleased. Zivara's fingers hovered just above Jacob's hand. In the secret flame garden, surrounded by glowing trees and silent statues, everything felt still. She didn't hear the lava rivers. She didn't feel the heat. She only saw him. The first person who didn't flinch. The first who smiled. The first she wanted to touch, without fear. Jacob stood completely still. He didn't step back. He didn't breathe hard. He just looked at her like she wasn't dangerous, like she was normal. I'm not afraid, he whispered, her eyes trembled. You should be. But he wasn't. She closed the distance and slowly placed her hand over his. Nothing burned. Nothing cracked. Her fingers rested on his skin, and the garden didn't flicker. The flames around them dimmed softly as if they were watching something sacred. Zivara let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She could feel his pulse. A warm, steady rhythm. She had touched someone, and they lived. But outside, danger was rising. High above, inside the royal council chamber, the elders of Paraxis were shouting. She touched him. One growled, pointing to the flickering images on the screen. They're alone in the sacred garden. She risked everything. Another hissed. That human is changing her. This cannot continue, the high flame elder declared. If her fire dims, Paraxis dims. If she falls in love, our power is broken. A silence fell across the council. Then a decision was made. Arrest the human. Zivara and Jacob sat on a stone bench, her hand still in his. I didn't think it was possible, she said quietly. I thought I'd always be alone. You're not, Jacob replied. Not anymore, suddenly crash. The garden doors burst open. Dozens of armored Paraxi guards stormed in, their weapons aimed. Behind them stood 3 robed council members, their faces hard and cold. Step away from him, princess, one of them shouted. Zivara jumped to her feet. Fire rushed around her body like a storm. What is the meaning of this? The human is to be imprisoned, the elder barked. He has corrupted your heart. Jacob raised his hands. Whoa, I didn't corrupt anything. Silence, the elder snapped. You are poison to the flame. Zivara moved in front of Jacob, her armor glowing hot. If you want him, you go through me. One of the guards hesitated. Princess, we cannot fight you, the elder growled. Then burn with them. The guards opened fire, not with bullets, but flame nets made of plasma. Zivara spun, forming a shield of fire protecting Jacob. Heat clashed against heat. Smoke filled the air. The flowers in the garden turned blue with shock. A net caught Jacob by the leg. He fell. Jacob, Zivara shouted, ripping it away with a blast of flame. One elder stepped forward, holding a control rod. You were our future, Zivara. The perfect weapon, but now? You are soft, weak, broken. Zivara's voice shook the walls. You're wrong. She pulled Jacob to his feet. Then she did the unthinkable. She kissed him, full of fire, full of fury, full of truth. The flames around her turned white. The garden lit up like a star, and then silence. When the light faded, Zivara was glowing but calm. Her flames were no longer wild. They obeyed her. The elders stepped back, eyes wide. You broke the curse. Jacob looked around, amazed. Is that what just happened? Zavara nodded slowly. It was never love that killed. It was fear, my shame, my control. She turned to the elders. No more cages. No more cold rooms. No more glass walls. I will burn, but not for war. For life. One by one, the guards lowered their weapons. The elders said nothing, because they had no power over her anymore. That night, the story spread across the stars. The princess who once burned all who touched her now walked hand in hand with a human, and Pyraxis would never be the same. The skies over Pyraxis turned red. Smoke spiraled from the ancient towers of the council citadel. The signal fires had been lit, the symbol of war, not warning. Inside the Blackstone halls, the elders shouted so loudly even the lava rivers below trembled. She has betrayed the flame. She touched a human. She kissed him. Her curse is broken, and with it our control. High Elder Varn, the oldest of them all, struck his staff against the floor. The fire pillars shook. She was never meant to rule with love, he hissed. She was forged to rule with fear. The others bowed their heads. The human must die. And Zivara must be corrected. Silence followed. Then the order was given. Send the flamebinders. Drag the human into the Inferno core. If she resists, bind her, burn her, silence her. Back at the palace, Jacob stood by the garden window, watching the lava trees sway in soft firelight. He still couldn't believe what had happened. A kiss, a real kiss from a princess of fire, and he didn't burn. In fact, he felt warm, safe, like her flames had wrapped around his soul, not his skin. Zavara walked into the room, her long cloak trailing behind. She looked different now, stronger, calmer, beautiful, in a way that made Jacob forget she could melt steel. They'll come for you, she said. I know, he replied. They'll try to tear you from me. I'll hold on. They'll throw you into the Inferno core, she warned, her voice tight. Jacob stepped closer. Then jump in with me, Zavara blinked. You're serious, he smiled. I'm not afraid of fire. Not yours. But before she could speak again, boom. The walls shook. The skies above darkened. The flamebinders had arrived. The flamebinders were not soldiers. They were executioners, masked in black obsidian armor, moving like shadows with chains that burned brighter than any sun. They landed in silence. No words, no warnings. Only flames. Zavara stood between them and Jacob, her eyes burning. You will not take him, she growled. One stepped forward and held up the royal decree. By order of the council, the human must be cast into the Inferno core. Jacob stepped beside her. Do I at least get a trial? No trial for threats, another said. Only fire, Zavara spread her arms. Then take me too. Your love has made you weak, the lead flamebinder spat. You disgrace your throne, Zavara's voice thundered. No, I found strength in what you fear. And then it began. The palace halls lit up with battle. Zavara moved like a storm of fire. Her power now fully controlled, no longer wild. Her flames curved around Jacob like armor, never touching him, but burning everything else. Jacob fought too, not with weapons, but with tricks. He grabbed wires, burst pipes, short-circuited power cells. He blinded guards with sparks and turned machines into smoke bombs. Together, they moved as one. But the flamebinders were many, and fast, and cold. One chain wrapped around Jacob's leg. Another hit his back, knocking him down. Zavara screamed. She blasted forward, melting armor, crushing stone. But she was pulled down by a dozen chains. Her fire raged, but the chains absorbed it. The flamebinders stood over Jacob's body, raising their weapons. This ends now. Then suddenly, BOOM! The palace floor cracked open. Lava roared from the depths and a figure rose from below. It was the old emperor, Zavara's father. Eyes like burning moons. You dare attack my blood in my house? He roared. The flamebinders froze. Zavara stared. Father? He looked at her, at Jacob, then at the council soldiers. I once feared her power, he said. I feared she would destroy. But now I see she is saving us. He raised his arms, the lava obeyed. It swallowed the flamebinders. dragging them screaming into the depths, leaving only silence behind. Later, as the palace burned around them, the Emperor stood with Zavara and Jacob. "You changed her," he told Jacob. Jacob shook his head. "She changed herself. I just stayed long enough to see it." The Emperor looked at his daughter. "Then maybe love isn't the enemy." Zavara took Jacob's hand gently. "No," she said. "Love is the flame that saves." The palace stood quiet now, not broken, not burning, but quiet. For the first time in Pyrax's history, the fire had not been used to destroy, but to protect. Princess Zavara stood on the highest tower, her hair no longer wild with flames, but calm like flowing fire rivers. She looked down at her people. Some watched with fear, others with wonder, none with hate. Beside her stood Jacob, his shirt torn, face bruised, but his hand still wrapped in hers. The human who touched fire and smiled. The Emperor stepped forward onto the balcony. He looked older now, tired but no longer cruel. He raised his voice to the crowd. "My daughter's fire once made us fear her, but her fire was never the danger. Our fear was silence." Then he turned to Zavara. "I hereby step down. Let the people of Pyraxis choose their future, not through fear, but through fire that loves." He handed her the flame crown. Zavara took it in shaking hands, then she shocked the world. She placed the crown on Jacob's head. Gasps echoed across the sky bridge. Even the lava rivers pulsed once. Jacob blinked. "What are you doing?" "I'm not a king," Zavara smiled. "You're not. But you stood with me when everyone else ran. You listened when everyone else shouted. You made me believe I was more than a weapon. That makes you more royal than any council." He tried to give it back, but she kissed him again, and this time, the crowd didn't panic, they cheered. Over the next few days, Pyraxis changed. The fire chambers were open to the people. The lava fields were used to heat homes instead of power weapons. The royal guards were no longer trained to burn, but to build. Jacob taught the engineers how to control flame with balance instead of force. He fixed machines that had been overheating for decades. And wherever he went, Zavara walked with him, not as a queen above him, but as an equal beside him. They planted a new garden in the center of the city. Real flowers, not crystal ones. It became the first place in Pyraxis history where children could walk without heat armor. And in the center of that garden, a statue was placed, a simple thing, a human and an alien, hand in hand standing inside a ring of flame. That didn't burn. One night, as the stars lit the sky, Zavara sat beside Jacob outside the garden. The air was warm, not hot. The fireflies flickered between them. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Which part?" he said. "Falling into a pit? Getting wrapped in fire chains? Almost melting?" She nudged him with her elbow. "Falling for a fire princess." He looked at her, then took her hand. "I fell," he said, "but I didn't burn." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I used to think I was cursed," she whispered, "that love would kill. But you proved love is the only thing that saved me." Far above them, in the stars, new ships arrived, not for war, but to witness a legend. A tale had spread through the galaxy of a girl no one could touch. And the human who did, not with strength, not with weapons, but with patience and care, and a heart that didn't flinch. And so Pyraxis was reborn. The world once feared for its flame became a symbol of healing. And its queen, once untouchable, became a flame that warmed the stars, with a human always by her side.